What's up, CTA family? Welcome to the Compete Mentality Podcast. The Compete Mentality Podcast will host basketball coaches, players, and trainers from all around the state of Indiana, country, and world. The whole mission of the Compete Mentality Podcast is to motivate, educate, and lead others in their faith, basketball, and personal journey to compete. Our definition of competing is doing what God is calling you to do, even when it's hard. No matter what area of life it is in, we are all called to compete. And ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you today the associate head coach of Indiana Wesleyan men's basketball, Jeff Clark. Jeff, thanks for joining us today, man.
So excited to be with you.
Absolutely, man. And guys, this is a special one for me. Me and Coach Clark, we go way back. We started coaching together in 2014 at Indiana Wesleyan, and we just really hit it off. And Coach Clark has played a huge role in my life, and he's been an unbelievable mentor to me. And there's been certain points in my life where he has spoken some truth into my life that I know the Holy Spirit placed on his heart that I really needed to hear. And I just can't wait to dive into more of what is on his heart today. So, Jeff, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. But you know how it is when you get alongside other people who like to compete, it's always mutually beneficial. So I remember some of those times when we coached together, whether it was in practice or before, going to lunch or breakfast or praying in the office. Oh man, those were some great memories.
Giving me chills, man. I miss those days, and I'm excited to dive in today. So, Jeff, just tell our audience a little bit of your background and how you got to where you are today, man.
Yeah, so I grew up in Indiana, Leo, Indiana, and went to Anderson University. During my junior year there, I really felt a call from the Lord to get into coaching. It was kind of a redirection of path, and that just led to really a complete shift in where I thought I was going to go. And through that, I had to take a little bit extra classes, so I had an opportunity to find somewhere to volunteer. And just through God's circumstances, ended up connecting with Coach Tonigal and Coach Nupp at the time in Indiana Wesleyan, volunteered for a year. From there, moved into full-time coaching here at Indiana Wesleyan. So I've been here this is my 15th year now. Live here in Marion with my wife, Tiffany, and we have 5 kids.
Man, that's crazy to think it's been 15 years. That's pretty special, man. And I want to dive into where you kind of you started volunteered and that part in time in your life where you felt like it was a change in your path that God was putting on your heart. Tell us a little more about your calling into coaching. We got a lot of potential coaches that listen to this podcast, hoopers that want to coach someday. Just kind of tell us about that calling to be a coach in your life.
Yeah, so it's funny. I was just telling this story, and I hadn't thought about it in years, but I had a frustrating experience at Anderson. Basketball was number one in my life, and I just wasn't good. So it was frustrating because I wanted this success, and I wasn't having it. I was just going to run from the game. I was going into finance. I wanted to make a lot of money and almost like prove I didn't need the game. And just through some different circumstances, God just redirected me and said, no, that's not where I want you to go. That's not what I want you to do. That's not who I want you to be. I want you to learn to surrender this game to me and put God first before basketball. From there, I went on this mission trip to Russia, ended up with some really godly men. For the first time, I saw what it looked like to pursue God and to compete. Really doing what God wants you to do. And it was hard at the time to say, I'm going to give up where I'm going. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to coach, because I had no idea where I was going to end up. But I knew the assistant here at Indiana Wesleyan under Coach Tonigal at the time, and just got encouraged to pursue that, and ended up, they were desperate for help. So they would have taken anybody at that point. Sure. Volunteered for a year, and I've been here ever since.
Man, little did they know they were going to get, I believe, a 4-time NAIA Assistant Coach of the Year. Little did they know from a volunteer. That's pretty big time, but lucky for them. But, Coach, I want to dive into a little bit about training. So at CTA, we train a lot of hoopers, and I want to know a little bit about your training philosophy specifically with a hooper and what that looks like. And Just nail down some of the important things that when you get a player that comes into your program, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, so I think this is for me a broader thing to really the way I specifically feel called a lead. Maybe how God has gifted me and wired me, and I would say it's identifying potential, cultivating potential, and unleashing potential. So uh, when a player comes, especially what I'm going to be in charge of, I don't want to have a cookie cutter model of what that player should be. I want to learn who they are. I want to learn what's inside of them, how God has made them. What are they naturally good at? Where do their instincts go? And then as you identify that, you try to cultivate in a way that it can lead to success on the court, and really build the model of how to grow that player around that, rather than say every player goes through this specific these drills, or you get a post player and they do these three post moves. It's more about learning who a player is. By the time they get to us, they've got 18 years of training habits, and we're probably not going to change some of those things, but we can cultivate what's already inside of them in order to position them to be most successful when they get on the court.
Absolutely. And you're giving me chills when you were saying some of those things. I literally just had that conversation with a point guard that I'm training right now. He's new, and he was asking me like, "What do I expect from your training?" And I said, "Dude, I'm like literally, I don't have a cookie cutter. I love how you said that. I don't have a cookie cutter philosophy for each player. I believe each player is different. Each player has different giftings. There are some things fundamentally I believe in that we're going to work on every single day, just like anything. And basketball is basketball. But as far as a philosophy for you, we're going to evaluate you and really tailor our philosophy to meet your needs specifically. So that's
Yeah,
really
and
cool.
the example I think that plays that out. So I think we're at 12 years in a row of having a post player who's an All-American.
Right.
And when you look back through those, you'd know some of these names. Zach Coverstone was a 6'9", really skilled back to the basket guy. Patrick Hopkins was a 6'5" football player who was just strong and dominant.
Yep.
Lane Mahurin was skilled face-up guy. RJ Mahurin, powerful but skilled. You go to Evan Maxwell, Seth Maxwell. Every single one of those guys ended up as an All-American, but they all had very different skill sets, very different instincts, and did different things. And learning who they are and learning how to position them for success, that's really a lot of what drives what we're trying to do as we grow players.
Absolutely. And that's just a testament to your training. And I love how you talked about just a wide variety of skill sets you've had to deal with, and they all ended up with the same result. Coach, I love how you talked about that quote you had on potential, about releasing potential. Can you say that again?
Identifying, cultivating, and unleashing.
Unleash.
Yeah.
Yes. So I want you to talk about a player that you've coached that came in and really maximized their potential, and how they did that. Like, what were the key factors into them maximizing all the potential that they had?
Well, the first thing I think of is I don't know if you remember Evan Maxwell, but Evan Maxwell was a 6'10", just powerful guy. He transferred us from Kansas University, so he's coming from the elite, one of the top 3 or 4 programs in the country.
Absolutely.
So you think he's coming here and he knows everything there is to know about the game. He knows exactly what he should be doing. Well, we started work with him, and man, he was a dominant post player. His just footwork and his duck-ins were at another level that we've ever seen. But we just started to talk to him about a thing we call dream time. So dream time would be when you turn the lights out at night and you're dreaming about your game, and you could become anything you wanted to be. What does that look like? Who is that? And of course he goes, I want to average 10 rebounds a game. Man, listen, that's not what you're dreaming about. And he said, honestly, I've always wanted to be able to shoot the ball, but I'm 6'10", so I've always been told go down and do a drop step. And so he said, okay, you can dream it, but will you work alongside that dream? Will you put the time in to see if that dream can come to life? So Evan, if he had an hour workout, the first 50 minutes, he's continuing to work on footwork and touch and finishing and playing through contact. But then we designed 10 minutes to say, okay, let's explore where you're at. And it started with face up, 15-foot face up. And we saw, man, he's got really good touch. And then it extended out to the 3-point line. Well, he ended up his senior year, he led the nation in 3-point percentage as a 6'10", 250-pound center.
Right.
And a lot of people would say, well, he should be on the block. And he was dominant there. But there was a different level of game planning that went into guarding him because he was allowed to explore what is your potential. Now, if he didn't put the work alongside of it, where he was in the gym and he was getting shots and he was on the gun, it wouldn't have happened. And when we got into the national tournament, specifically the national championship game, he hit a couple threes. We got a big St. Francis who we were playing that year, went on a run, and he hit a three that was kind of the dagger. And in my mind, when he made that three, I thought to all that time he had spent, not just saying, oh, I want to be able to shoot someday, but actually putting the time in to become this threat from the three-point line.
Man, that is a powerful word right there, and really putting in the work to achieve that dream. Coach, you've been in the Crossroads League for 15 years now, and I want to talk a little bit about the skill set in the Crossroads League, and you've seen a lot of high-level players. You've recruited a lot of high-level recruits, and honestly, I will even make the statement, and I want to see if you agree with me, that some of the best skill set in the entire country is in the Crossroads League. Would you, as far as skill set at any level of basketball, would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And so much of it, I mean, think about what you guys are growing in the barn. That happens in Indiana. You know, those are the type of stories where you see players who want to get better and they want to grow their game. They want to become skilled and they're willing to put the time in. And as that happens across the state, in local communities with high school coaches who really value it, with communities that get behind, you see players rise in skill level. So we all the time go to other states and recruit, and just the infrastructure of basketball development is not anywhere near it is here locally, doing stuff like what you guys are doing to really develop skill. And what that produces is a lot of skilled players that end up in the Crossroads League, where you see shooting and passing and ball handling at a high level.
Absolutely. And our barn is located in Marion, Indiana, right kind of in the heart of the Crossroads. And we train a lot of Crossroads League players. And this past spring, we had the opportunity where a bunch of your guys, Indiana Wesleyan, were out at the barn really honing their craft. And I want to talk about one of those players, Kyle Mangus. And so Kyle, and I will make the statement on this podcast, is probably the best Crossroads League player to ever come through the Crossroads League. I mean, a 3,000-point scorer, just past Larry Bird. And I want to talk about, from your perspective, what makes Kyle so special?
Well, there's a lot that you could say here, because obviously he is skilled. He can shoot it. He has a great feel for the game. But I really think Kyle's superpower is he doesn't think about himself. And you see it when you watch him play. If he runs back on defense, you would have no idea if he made a three or dunked on someone or turned it over. He just moves on to the next play. And it's never about how many points or how am I playing, or he's always thinking about his teammates, and he's always in focus there. So the number of times we'll go into halftime and he has 3 points and then he finishes with 30, it's because when he goes into half, he's not thinking, oh, I feel bad for myself because I'm not making shots. Oh, I wonder if this next one's going to go in. No, he's just playing the game, and he's just making the right play. I mean, if you talk about competing, doing the right thing, even when it's hard, he embodies that. For him, there's some players, if they miss their first shot, it's hard to shoot confident on the next shot. A lot of times that's because they're self-focused. They're thinking about themselves. Kyle, he never focuses on himself no matter what's happening, and that allows him to produce consistently and efficiently because he just always moves on to the next play.
Absolutely, Coach. And I love hearing you say that, because we have a saying in the barn that mindset is greater than skill set. And that's just what that means, is that exactly what you're saying, that you have got to be – it doesn't matter how high level your skill set is, but if your mind isn't right, if you don't have the right mindset, where just like you guys talk about, I am third, and you're being unselfish and you're valuing your teammates above yourself and you're bought into the team, it doesn't matter. You won't win on the court, and you're definitely not going to win in life after your time playing basketball if you don't have the right mindset.
Yeah, I love that saying, and Kyle really lives that out. So I think some people, when they think of toughness, they just think of who can put the most weight on the bench press and throw it up, or who can growl the loudest, and who can have the most energy. And Kyle
Yep.
is understated. He's quiet, but he is so tough. He's one of the toughest players we've ever had because his skill set is a high level, but it does not match the level of his mindset.
Absolutely, I love to hear that, and I think a lot of coaches, a lot of players get it twisted when they're defining toughness, and it is definitely not. It is physical toughness, but it's that mental toughness that you're talking about, and being able to control your emotions and be present in each play. Coach, I want to talk to you really about. I want you've been in some really awesome high level games. I remember the first Indiana Wesleyan game I actually watched. So I'm playing in college basketball, and you guys are up at St. Francis, and one of my high school teammates, Aaron Martin, was playing for you guys, and I just went to watch him play. And you guys are playing at St. Francis against Dejavon Sawyer Davis and Q Owens. And I was actually texting Q yesterday about this game, and you guys won in overtime, and I'm like, holy cow! This was an intro to the Crossroads League for me. I'm like, that was one of the funnest games I've ever seen in my life. Like, that was unbelievable. You guys won in overtime, beat them at St. Francis. I want to hear, if you could choose one game, Coach, from your entire 15 years, what was the most exciting, your favorite game to coach in, and why?
Well, man, the Crossroads League, there's so many because of the level of this league and the coaches, and you can go back and think through all. But if I had to be really transparent, so when we played at Indiana University, they were ranked number one in the country. Grew up going to Assembly Hall.
Yeah.
And our guys competed. We took a 9-point lead in the first half. We battled them the whole way. And it was a team with Cody Zeller and Victor Oladipo and Jordy Holes. They were one in the country, and there was a buzz in there. And our guys went and silenced the crowd. My grandpa was there, who was a lifelong Hoosier fan. My dad went to IU. My mom went to IU. So that experience, 17,000 people there, was something that I will never forget. That I'd probably say was the most enjoyable game I've been a part of.
Man, that's crazy. I remember that year, and that year was actually when I got to spend one season at Purdue University when I was done playing college basketball, finishing up my degree under Coach Painter, and that was the year I was there. And that IU team, I hate to admit, came into Mackey and beat us by like 30, and I got a couple stories about practice the next day that we'll definitely save for another podcast. But
Well, I'll share it quickly with you. So when we were Jordan Widener, if you know him, he is the ultimate competitor, and just a unbelievable man of God. The way he grew here. Well, we were at Bloomington, and we were about to get off the bus, and he stood up and he said, "If there is one person who does not think we're going to win this game, do not get off the bus." And I kind of looked around. I'm like, well, should I stay here? I mean, I'm not sure. I think we're going to win this game, but I think that would look bad if one of the coaches just sat on the bus after your senior leader inspired the team like that. But to Jordan's credit, he thought we
Yes.
were going to win. And after the game, I mean, like I said, we competed with them. There was a stretch in the second half where free throw line to free throw line, they were so fast, and they went on a 20-0 run. Other than that, we were pretty even with them. Everybody, IU fans included, couldn't believe it. Jordan was not happy because he felt like we were going to win that game. And I guarantee if we go back, he thinks if we played him, we'd beat him again.
Absolutely. And he's another player that I absolutely love. And when I coached Indiana Wesleyan, I was kind of sandwiched right in between Jordan Widener before me and Kyle Mangus after me. Those are two players that, man, I really wish I would have been able to coach and practice that are really, really special. And yes, there's no doubt Jordan Widener is ultimate competitor. Love Jay White. Coach, competing is doing what God is calling you to do even when it's hard. And I want you to tell the audience a story of some point in your life where you went through some adversity, maybe a teammate or a family member and went through some adversity, or maybe this is a personal story for you, but you came out on the other side and you competed. You did what God called you to do, even when it's hard. And hindsight 2020, you saw how God worked and drew you near to Him and made you a better person. Tell us the story.
Yeah, I'd have to say my mind, as you said, it goes back to about 7 years ago. We were in the midst of we had a newborn child who was sick. It was the middle of the season, and we got news that my wife Tiffany, her father, had cancer. And it was a grim outlook, and it was just a devastating time. I mean, you're trying to coach, but your heart is with your family, and you're thinking of him. And he had to go out to Omaha, Nebraska, to have a stem cell transplant. When we went out there with the kids, and he was they basically took him to the verge of death, to bring him back. And man, he is doing unbelievable right now. And he is just, he's healthy. He's living life to the full, and he was just a warrior through this whole thing. But when I think back to this time, I think what I learned looking at my wife, looking at my mother-in-law, looking at my father-in-law, just people who they never felt sorry for themselves when they were in the midst of this. You know, the I am third life, God first, others second, I am third. We really believe it's the best way to live, and it's the best way to lead. So there was this sadness that kind of pervaded our lives during that time, because we didn't know what was going to happen, and we didn't know what the outcome was going to be, and it was just kind of always a cloud. But it never kept anybody from continuing to put God first and others second. There were moments of tears and sadness and fear and doubt, and none of those things are negative, but they all, what I learned is all of those things can cause me to turn inward and think of myself first, rather than flipping and living the I am third life. So I think the biggest thing I learned through that is whatever the circumstances are, there's a God who's bigger than those circumstances. So if I can take my eyes off the circumstance and put them on the one who is bigger, well, that's the direction we should take when we face adversity, and that's what competing is all about.
Man, that's so inspiring, Coach, and I can't wait to hear from our listeners of how that story is going to draw others near to Christ. Coach, as we transition, I want to talk a little bit more about the players you recruit, and quite frankly, I got a lot of players right now that would love to play for you that are listening to the podcast. And we do every time we get a new player that comes into the barn. The first thing we do is this goal setting document, kind of like your dream big. And we talk to them, and a lot of times I say, hey, write down your top 5 schools of where you want to play at. And Indiana Wesleyan is number 1 many times. I mean, you got a lot of prospective hoopers that really want to play for you. So I want you to tell them what you're looking for in a recruit to play at Indiana Wesleyan.
Man, I love to hear that. And it's really a testament to how the program's grown and just the desire to play for Coach Tonagel. And I think that's spread. I'll give you an example. I actually called a kid recently from Indianapolis, plays at one of the big schools down there, and he's being heavily recruited. And it was the first conversation with him. And I didn't even know if he knew who he was. And he said, I said, what do you know about Indiana Wesleyan? And he said, well, basically, I know 2 things. 1, I am third. Y'all care about that. And 2, a lot of people choose you guys over Division I. So that's the reputation that is kind of spread.
For sure.
And there's some responsibility with that. Like, hey, we want to go and find the guys who fit the way we want to play. So there's really 2 things that Coach Tonagel believes in most. One is I am third, God first, others second, I am third. And then there's fearless, someone who really whatever's in front of them, they attack it with the fearless mentality. So what that means is when we walk in a gym, our first thought is not going to be who can run the fastest, who can jump the highest, who can shoot the best. Our first thought is always going to be who in this gym is I am third and fearless.
That's right.
And you always see what you're looking for, right? Like whatever your eyes want to find, you'll find it. So if that's the motivating thought when we walk in a gym, those players rise. Now, listen, skill level, shooting, running, jumping, all those things are important, but those come off a foundation of those other two attributes. So if mindset is over skill set, those are the mindsets we want first.
Absolutely.
And what we found over time is the players who have those, when they get in our environment over 4 years, they flourish and they grow. The players who don't have a really hard time. So we more and more pay attention to those things in the recruiting process and value those. And as an example, I was just talking to Coach Ogle from Warsaw, one of my favorite guys, and was talking to him about recruiting, and he was asking about our team. And I guess I hadn't realized it, but if you look at our backcourt, so like people talk about Taysom Parker, who had 5 Division I offers, which is amazing, but Kyle Mangus had one other offer, Grace College. Spencer Piercefield had one other offer, Goshen College, and Noah Smith had 0 other offers. So at times we've been able to get the really highly recruited player, but at times we've just seen something in a player and said, hey, this player would flourish in our environment. And maybe others don't see it because they're looking at some of those other things. But as we identify the I am third and the fearless, and we get them in our environment, we see them go to a new level, and they're like, wait, how'd you get that player? Because nobody else wanted them.
For sure. And I actually remember you telling me those exact words when I showed up at Indiana Wesleyan. And I believe Jay Wide was still around working out before he was going to Canada to play. And I'm like, how in the world did you guys pick up Jay Wide? And you said, we saw him for who he was, not for who he was not.
Yeah.
I think that's really special about the way you guys recruit.
Well, and that's a great reminder, because I remember the first time that I saw Jordan Widener, it was at our gym. Their AAU team was practicing, and at that practice, I was like, that's a dream kid. It's the first time we've seen him. He was a sophomore, and I thought, no way we can ever get this kid because of his mentality.
Right.
Well, fast forward, he didn't get any offers from anybody, and it was because everybody said, well, he's only 6 foot.
Right.
He's not really a point guard. He can't really shoot, and everybody's picking apart, here's who he's not. But, like, dude won every game he was ever in. He would go dunk on anybody.
Yes.
He never backed down. But people would start looking at him like, yeah, but he's not really this or that.
For sure.
So, yeah, man, great memory.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, as we kind of wrap up here, I want to talk to you about your former self. And if you could write a letter to a Jeff Clark as a high schooler, knowing what you know now about life and basketball, what would you say?
Stop thinking about yourself. Put God in number one and pursue him with your whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then look at the people around you and think about how you can make them better. Add value to everybody you're around, and just stop thinking about yourself.
Man, you can really drop the mic on that. And Coach, it's so cool to hear you talk about really that it's not about you. I remember the first sentence in the book, Purpose Driven Life. It says it's not about you. And Coach Clark has talked about that all through this podcast. And the sooner we figure that out, the better it's going to be for us, and the more we're going to draw near to Christ and others. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. CTA family, always remember that competing is doing what God is calling you to do, even when it's hard.
Thanks, Eddie. Love you, man.
Love you too, brother.